From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Issue 1, Immigration Showdown.
So we're going to offer the following deal. If you've been in America for more than 5 years, if you have children who are American citizens or legal residents, if you register, pass a criminal background check, and you're willing to pay your fair share of taxes, you'll be able to apply to stay in this country temporarily without fear of deportation. You can come out of the shadows and get right with the law.
President Obama then reminded the American people about the origins of our nation.
My fellow Americans, we are and always will be a nation of immigrants. We were strangers once too. And whether our forebears were strangers who crossed the Atlantic or the Pacific or the Rio Grande, we are here only because this country welcomed them in and taught them that to be an American is about something more than what we look like or what our last names are or how we worship. What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal, that all of us are created equal, and all of us have the chance to make of our lives what we will.
Question, is the president right? Is this executive action American idealism in action? Pat Buchanan.
We're also a nation of laws, and we have a constitution. And Barack Obama has said sort of repeatedly that he did not have the legal or the constitutional authority to issue what is an executive amnesty. He is behaving as a rogue president, John. Politically, it may be a very clever move. He's dividing the Republicans, no doubt about it. He's sticking it into their face after their victory. He's saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, now you pass your bill. But the problem is, I think he has really poisoned the well with the Republicans for the next 2 years. Maybe he felt there was no alternative. That was going to happen anyway. But I think, John, this is going to be, no doubt about it, along with Obamacare, one of the signal achievements of the Obama administration. I think it's going to backfire on him politically, and I think it's going to backfire on the Democratic Party.
Eleanor.
I think it's a huge step that this president has taken. Not only for the some 4 million people whose lives will be directly affected and who are living among us, taking care of our children, mowing our lawns, doing all kinds of work. I think it's an appropriate policy step. I think he's on strong legal ground. He cited a number of precedents that Republican and Democratic presidents have taken. The only difference with this is a larger group of people. The country is larger, and the immigrant population has grown. And the Republicans have an easy answer to this. They can just pass their own bill. The Congress isn't working. The Republicans have methodically made sure of that ever since they took over the House in 2010. And now they're paying the price for that, because power is going to move to the executive and to the courts. If the Congress can't get its act together, I think the president is right to take action and not let these huge problems continue to fester.
Tom.
Well, I mean, the issue here is that this is a complete this is, the full circle from the presidential candidate of 2008 about changing the tone of Washington. It's executive overreach to a huge degree. Whether the president's policy is right, it's not right in procedure, and I think it's a great disservice, not just to the executive branch and the presidency and this president himself, but also actually to the notion of American law. I mean, you have to remember that this is a Harvard law graduate who has done this in such a disdainful way, and it has poisoned the well, and that's a deep shame, because I think there was opportunity. Boehner and McConnell were talking about areas of opportunity going forward, and now I just don't see it happening.
Martin.
Well, I mean, I sit here as an immigrant myself, coming from a different country, and I was fortunate to be able to get into this country, and I've stayed here ever since, obviously. I think that is a great opportunity for people to do that. But the way I did it, of course, was the legal way, and I think this is going to have to be taken into account. There will be, I suspect, some legitimate legal support for what he's doing. But politically, I think it's a huge, huge mistake, because he has now poisoned the well of his relationship with the Congress for the rest of his presidency. And that, it seems to me, there's going to be repercussions and very, very difficult issues that come up in this country that will not be able to resolve because of the hostility that will come out of it.
The well was already poisoned. I mean, the Republicans made a decision early on to oppose virtually everything this president did. Now, if they disagree with him on that, they say, oh, we might not confirm an attorney general, we're not going to confirm any of your appointments, we're not going to do anything on all these other issues. That's like a third grader's response. That's like stamping your feet and holding your breath. You think the country's going to reward that? I hope not.
Eleanor,
and they only will, excuse me, they only will argue with him on procedure. They won't argue with him on the substance of what he has done, because what he has done is correct.
If you can't
and
get it
will
through
stand up in the courts.
If you can't get it through the Congress of the United States, you cannot do it unilaterally. He doesn't have the authority. He said so himself. He told them for years, I can't do this, fellows. I would like to do it, but I can't. It's unconstitutional. He's a constitutional lawyer.
He didn't include the parents of the Dreamers. He concluded that went over the legal line. They have careful legal backing for this, and there has been no successful legal action taken against DACA, the extension of legality to the so-called the Dreamers. We don't have a rogue president. We have a rogue Congress, if anything.
What about the optics of it?
Terrible.
He's alone. He enters the door. He walks down a hallway. He takes a position at the rostrum. It was really quite dramatic.
Oh, it was quite dramatic, and he says, "Look, you guys can get around this. You can pass a bill."
That's right.
In other words, I'm going to do it, but if you pass a bill, then you can get it done yourselves. He doesn't have the authority to do it.
Do you remember a movie called High Noon?
Yeah,
sure.
Gary Cooper.
Yeah.
He went into a city, and his life was in danger.
He had a badge on. He was a sheriff, and nobody backed him up except for Grace Kelly.
He walked down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
All right.
Frank
and
Miller.
He waited for somebody to take a shot.
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller. You think there were overtones of that? And
I don't know, somehow or other, I didn't think of that. I'm missing something, John. I got to tell you something.
It reminded me of Gary Cooper, don't you understand?
No, I don't understand.
He was out there by himself.
Gary Cooper did not come to mind, I have to say, when I saw him.
He had the guns here, the sling?
No, yes, listen.
He was ready to move?
Well, this president would have guns.
He would have been shot down, except Grace Kelly shot the guy in the back.
The Republicans.
Good, Pat. Okay, Republican response. In response to President Obama's executive action on immigration reform, including granting legal status to millions of illegal immigrants, Republicans are gearing up for a fight. One proposal that's gathering steam is to prevent President Obama from funding the documentation prerequisites of his amnesty, namely preventing funding for formal IDs and Social Security numbers that would allow illegal immigrants to find work and receive benefits under federal and state laws. Republican Senator-elect Tom Cotton explained.
We have fully funded our military spending bills for the last 6 years and put restrictions on what the president can do in terms of transferring terrorists from Guantanamo Bay to the United States. There's no reason that we can't fund all of our immigration agencies and law enforcement agencies, yet not let the president use taxpayer dollars to give Social Security numbers and work permits and photo IDs to illegal immigrants.
Question, how will Republicans respond to President Obama's executive action? Eleanor Clift.
Well, they went and filed their lawsuit on Obamacare, and they'll probably try to piggyback this on as well. But this is going to be a major talking point in the Republican primaries, and there will be a show of hands. Will everyone take the vow to overturn the president's executive order? And maybe there's going to be one or two who won't take that vow, and if Jeb Bush is in that lineup, maybe that'll make him stand out, and he'll give us a different Republican Party. But this is going to define the Republican Party going ahead, for good or for ill.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pat is right in the sense it's going to fracture the Republican Party, at least in the short term. Ted Cruz, you already see coming out very strongly, using it for 16. But again, my real issue is that it has burnt those bridges with Boehner and McConnell. If
those bridges didn't exist.
No, but they did exist, Eleanor. No. They did exist after midterms because there was a clear rhetoric change, and that was under a lot of pressure from Tea Party activists who didn't want to see that change. And now the president essentially has told them, get lost, I'm not interested, this is it, I'm done, I'm the executive president, goodbye Congress. And that is the legacy now.
Do you remember my question?
Yeah, more or less, okay. But I
work with the lesson, see how far you get.
Okay, I think the residue of this is very negative for this country. I really do. I think it's going to become extremely difficult to address a lot of issues in this country as a result of the breakdown in whatever constructive relationship would have existed between the president and the Congress. That is not what the president ought to be doing.
I think you're exactly right. I think what you're getting is a breakdown in democracy here between the two branches are going to be virtually at war with each other on everything except what is essential.
Okay, hold on, Ellen. A blast from the past. In April, 7 months ago, Republican House Speaker John Boehner mocked his own Republican colleagues for resisting immigration reform. Here's Speaker Boehner.
The appetite amongst my colleagues for doing this is not real good. And this guy's back here with a camera, but here's the attitude. Oh, don't make me do this. Oh, this is too hard.
Question, is Speaker Boehner right? Is it just, quote, unquote, too hard for Republicans in the House to pass immigration reform? Tom Rogan.
No, it isn't too hard, but what the president has done here is made it a lot harder. That's the whole problem. There was areas for compromise. You see actually as an example, Senator Rubio going out on a limb. There are Republicans who have been willing to buck the train. I would agree with Eleanor that the Republican Party is to a degree elements of delusional.
Took back the limb. He didn't. He backed away from it.
Boehner and McConnell were saying.
Let her finish. Go ahead.
Boehner promised the president for a year that he was going to take it up, and then finally he went to the president and said, "I can't do it." Which is when the president said, "If you can't do it, then I'm going to do this." First he said by the end of the summer, then it was by the end of the year. This is a campaign promise this president did not walk away from.
John, there is a war inside the Republican Party over this. The corporate Republicans, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, those guys, they would like to get it off the table. They don't have any problem with it. It's the base of the party, and it's also the base of middle America. Sees they're losing a country because they got an invasion unchecked across the border, and the commander-in-chief won't do anything about it.
Depends how you define middle America. Middle America is going to be looking a lot different over the coming years. Plus, in fact, nobody's coming across the border anymore because we don't have a good economy. People overstay their visas, and that should be solved with some passport
Is this
control.
immigration executive action within the president's proper authority, or does it exceed the president's proper authority? Pat Buchanan.
It's an impeachable act, but they should not impeach him.
Congress can decide who is eligible for citizenship. The executive has broad authority, according to the Supreme Court, to deport people, and that's the president is using his prosecutorial authority.
Yeah, the president is supposed to be a president, not a. This is an unmitigated insult to. Sorry, this is an unmitigated insult to American constitutional law, and it is.
What?
Yes, I agree. I think it is a fundamental disruption in the way our government was supposed to work.
What? I share your view. Issue 2, terror in Jerusalem. Jerusalem on Tuesday was the scene of a horrific slaughter. 2 Palestinians murdered, 4 rabbis, and an Israeli police officer at a West Jerusalem synagogue. 3 of the rabbis had dual U.S. citizenship. The attackers were then shot dead by Israeli security forces. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the attack.
תמיד יכולנו לו, וכך יהיה גם הפעם. יש מי שמבקש לעקור אותנו מארצנו ומבירתנו. הם לא ישיגו את מבוקשם. אנחנו בקרב על ירושלים, בירתנו הנצחית.
Angered by Israel's revival of the practice of destroying the homes of families related to Palestinian assailants, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas denounced both the Israeli razing of homes and the attacks at the synagogue.
ولا نقبل بأي حال من الأحوال أن يعتدى على المدنيين وهنا نقول أنه في الوقت الذي ندين هذا العمل أيضا ندين الاعتداءات على الحرم القدسي وعلى الأماكن المقدسة.
Palestinians are furious at ongoing efforts by elements of the Israeli religious right to gain prayer rights on Jerusalem's Temple Mount, home to the third holiest site in Islam, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. At present, only Muslims are allowed to pray at the site. Despite this, Mr. Netanyahu says the status quo won't change. Palestinians are using the controversy to justify attacks, and Jerusalem is suffering. In October, 2 separate incidents, Palestinian drivers rammed pedestrians in central Jerusalem, killing a total of 4 people, including a 3-month-old baby.
Question: has the violence in Jerusalem crossed a new threshold, Mort Zuckerman?
Yes, it certainly has. I mean, what you saw there was an absolutely outrageous and horrible attack on people in prayer. A number of rabbis were killed as well. And this was just an absolute massacre of innocent people. And that has so dramatically escalated the tension between the Arab communities and the Jewish communities there that we're going to see a lot of fallout from this for over a long period of time.
The attacks are targeting the religion and not just the Israeli state. Is that true?
No, that's not. Unless, certainly, the Israeli state, which was founded as a practical matter to provide a home for the Jews after what happened to them. But this Israeli state is the Israeli state. Hebrew is the regular language. The majority of the population are Jewish, without question. There is a group there who were Orthodox, and a number of them were killed just mercilessly in the midst of a religious ceremony. So this is a terrible, terrible event.
I think, John, this is added. Look, you've got the political, you've got the war in Gaza, you've got these mutual atrocities, little kids being lynched basically. Now this horrific thing that happened in that synagogue has added a religious aspect, of religious fanaticism to the political and the historic battle. And what it says to me is, quite frankly, that I think you got to be almost near despair as to whether you're ever going to get an agreement in any approachable future between the Israelis and the Palestinians for an independent state, especially after Gaza, where some of those rockets went right near Ben Gurion Airport and they shut it down. I don't see any Israeli leader from Netanyahu right to Bennett to Lieberman or those folks who are ever going to give up that West Bank.
Is there any connection between ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism against Jews?
Well, the political theology of Sunni Salafist groups, Hamas, for example, and ISIS share a hatred of Jews and people they believe as, apostates against the faith. There is a more nationalist vein to Palestinian Islamism, but this attack reflects the fact that as much as there is a profound political disagreement between different groups, there is also a profound hatred for the very essence of Judaism, unfortunately, in Palestinian terror groups. The murder of these rabbis at the mosque is the greatest symbol of that, and it does affect all the political environment beyond.
Earlier this year, 4 people were killed at the Jewish Museum in Brussels. Their killer was Mehdi Nemmouche, a French Muslim who had fought with ISIS in Syria. Does that bind things together? And back to ISIS?
It's terrifying in Europe, the rise of Islam, but also the rise of just general anti-immigrant hatred. And you have that combined with the populist backlash against the constriction in the economy. And I think, Jews probably feel like they're being singled out, but I think Muslims feel like they're being singled out. It's kind of a really...
Let's develop this. I've got to interrupt here. The Jews do not feel they're being singled out except by Muslims. The Muslims are not being singled out by the Jews, okay? It's the Muslims who are attacking the Jews in most of the capitals of Europe.
Second generation, the Muslim populations, let's give it, France is something like 5 to 6 million, 10 times as large as the Jewish population. And second generation Muslims are some of these folks that are going out and going over to Syria and fighting. It's becoming very radicalized, and it's a very dangerous problem, certainly for Jews in particular. But for all of Europe.
Let's pursue this a little further. It isn't just Jews in Israel who are under attack.
Today, anti-Semitism is on the rise across much of Europe. In Belgium, Jews are warned not to wear their religious adornments in public. In France, Jewish stores and synagogues are regularly attacked by young Muslims. In Dortmund, Germany, neo-Nazi groups recently issued a formal request for the number of Jews living in the city. While the request was disregarded, it speaks to a trend. Even in Britain, Jews are worried.
But why is what you see in a demonstration, why does that affect the way you feel about how safe you are?
Because there's placards saying death to the Jews and Hitler was right and things which I don't see what that has got to do with Israel's policy in Gaza. And that's scary as a Jew living in the 21st century in modern Britain to be encountering that kind of blatant, flagrant anti-Semitism, quite frankly.
Sweden recognized Palestinian statehood. Will other European countries follow suit? And do you understand why Sweden did it?
Well, there is a much more sympathetic viewpoint in much of the European political class towards the Palestinian side in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. But going back to this anti-Semitism issue, it's a real concern, and I think it's actually not recognized as such in terms of both statistics and the visceral nature of it, the hatred for Jews beyond any construction of Israel.
This is not 1938. You had the French leaders, the German leaders, they're all speaking out against this. But you have fringe parties on the left and the right that are embracing some virulent attitudes.
But John, you don't have to be anti-Semitic to support a Palestinian state.
No.
I don't think that defines anti-Semitism. No. What you see happening in these places, instances of Europe, is anti-Semitic, but I think the idea of a Palestinian state is supposedly endorsed by the Israelis themselves, or many of them.
It is. The European Jewish Congress has a president, and his name is Moshe Kantor. He is quoted in Haaretz, quote, "Never at any time since the end of World War II has anti-Semitism so manifested itself on the continent of Europe." Yeah. What about that?
He's absolutely right. It has, first place, a part of it comes from the fact there's a large Muslim population in Europe. The people who have emigrated to Europe, frankly, for economic reasons, and there is a significant community there, and they are the core of it. But there's always been a residue of anti-Semitism in Europe, as we know. But it had a great deal of it had been had just diminished. It had disappeared. It's coming back again, but it's principally pushed by the Muslim community.
Issue 3, Obamacare on life support.
To pass a new law, you need a positive score. In Washington, D.C., the Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, a strictly nonpartisan agency, retains the golden stamp of fiscal approval for proposed new laws. The CBO scores a congressional bill's impact on the national debt. And the CBO also clarifies whether a bill includes new taxes. Here's how Jonathan Gruber, one of the architects of the Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare, describes how that bill sidestepped the CBO review.
This bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like the lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
With consultant Gruber's comments now in the public eye, just as the healthcare exchange is open for 2015 business, President Obama's landmark law has again become buried in controversy.
Question, in his G20 news conference in Brisbane, Australia earlier this month, President Obama dismissed Mr. Gruber as, quote-unquote, some advisor who never worked on our staff, unquote. Is that an accurate portrayal, Mort Zuckerman?
No, it is certainly not an accurate portrayal. It is called, I'm trying to get this guy as far away from me as possible because he's got some real evidence that I may have been lying to the American public.
I don't think that's the case. They didn't want to use the word tax because that would have killed the bill. And the way legislation is written, you put the best face forward. When George W. Bush passed the prescription drug benefit, they're not allowed to negotiate lower prices, and that was part of a deal with the pharmaceutical companies. Unfortunately, it's sausage making, and this guy went out and revealed the whole sausage making deal to the American public.
If you want to mislead the American public, you can take that approach. I don't think it's a valid approach.
Hold on, Pat. Gruber made more than 27 visits to the White House. 27. Got it? He was paid $400,000 by HHS, Health and Human Services, as a consultant in shaping the law, and was personally named by the President in public remarks 5 years ago as one of the people whose ideas he was drawing on to create the Affordable Care Act. I have another note here that Obama on Saturday dismissed MIT professor and Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber, some advisor who never worked on our staff.
Right.
In point of fact, Jonathan Gruber earned $6 million when? Over how long a period of time?
I think it's over 3 or 4 years. But let me say this. What Gruber said very simply is, we put one over on the stupid Americans. And that's what a lot of Americans believe. They didn't understand it. Pelosi said we got to pass it to find out what's in it. And this is very extraordinarily damaging both to the Obama program and to the president himself. But this guy Gruber is an extract of pure liberalism. A liberal racketeer. One of these guys that's brought in with a great moral, he's got a great moral compass as he does this, but he enriches himself. He enriches himself.
He also advised on the Romney bill in Massachusetts.
Well, he probably made some money.
And today, 7 million people have health care who wouldn't otherwise have it. You can, the rest of us don't have to worry.
Are you defending Gruber?
I'm defending the Obamacare and the results of it.
Right.
I think Gruber is an academician. He has too much high regard for himself. He's not a diplomat or a politician.
Rogan, you've got about 20 seconds.
Yeah, very quick. The issue it shows is that, you know, the administration, all the rhetoric 2008, as I said earlier, it's just turned out to be completely not true.
You think you're
the president's playing golf.
You think you're overstating?
No, I'm not. But here's another issue for the Obamacare. My generation are paying a lot more. It is a very bad deal for my generation, but I accept on the Republican side this delusion that we somehow have amazing health care, even though we pay twice what any other country pays, and that, you know, doctors, to get a bit more money, send people off for unnecessary tests. We need to wake up on both sides and get healthcare reform that actually addresses these issues, covers people who can't afford it, but does it in a way that engages the private sector.
You think you could formulate such a health program?
I have written about it. I will post the links on my homepage. I have written extensively about it.
Extensively?
I will send them, and you will be. I think, respectful.
All right, wait a minute. Can we all get in? Can we all get in on this deal?
He's our Gruber. He's our Gruber.
Predictions, Pat.
New Congress will try to arm Ukraine. A mistake.
Elena.
The next president, even if it's a Republican, will leave Obama's executive order in place. Once rights are given, they usually aren't taken away.
Tom.
Before the new Congress takes office, Senate Democrats will attempt to leak the CIA report.
What?
The collapse of energy prices is going to put great pressure on Russia's economy and on Putin himself.
Next year, the Supreme Court will rule against the legality of Obamacare subsidies on the Federal Exchange. Happy Thanksgiving. Gobble, gobble. Bye-bye.